What? 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 What are you looking at?
There's something over there.
Hey friends, it's BeccaG NYC. Welcome back, and welcome those who are new. Please ignore any background noise, I can't really control it. As of right now, my Annie's Road video is the most viewed of my haunted exploration videos. I am so grateful for all the love and positive responses that video got, and I'm happy to see you guys enjoying it. If you haven't seen that video, I have it linked on the side and linked in the description below. This video is a follow-up to that one, because there is a lot of mystery left to ponder. Since posting the Annie's Road video, I've gotten feedback from different people from various places, whether it be YouTube, TikTok, etc., recounting their own eerily similar experiences to ours. Some stories going back to the 70s and 80s. I'd like to share some of these stories with you and also show you some clips from when we revisited Laurel Grove Cemetery in Totowa, New Jersey. Before I do this, I want to make a few things absolutely clear, and this is in regards to all of my spooky videos. As of right now, my focus with these videos are on the folklore and urban legend of each of these places I visit. That's what I personally find interesting. I know there's a community of others who do, even if the story's fake. It's fun. A place's history you can find anywhere. If there is a historical significance to a location I visit, I do try my best to get all of my facts straight, to fill you in on the background, and I link my sources in the video description. If I'm incorrect about a documented historical fact, then I'm open to respectful corrections. Urban legend or folklore isn't so concrete. They are stories passed down through generations, and there's very little tangible evidence to back them up. There may be some truth to them, or there may not be. They exist purely for fun, and they connect people. It's up to the reader or listener to decide for themselves if they believe the story or not, or if you're like us, explore for themselves. Furthermore, I vowed from the very beginning of making these types of videos 3.5 years ago that I would never fake a ghost sighting in any of my videos. This still stands true. Not that anyone has accused me of doing so, but I just want to make that clear. I took on this ongoing project as a documentarian. I want to be the eyes for others who can't go and travel and ghost hunt for themselves. And if nothing else, I just want to document for myself and have fun with it, which is what I'm doing. What I will do as an editor and storyteller is create entertainment out of whatever footage we got that day, ghost sighting or not. Like with any other documentary, I work with what I got and I enjoy the challenge. No trip is a fail to me. I published what we captured on camera as we drove past the cemetery, and I slowed down the footage so others could have a look. Does this mean that I believe what we saw was absolutely a ghost? No, maybe it wasn't. Did I look into other possibilities of what it could be? Yes, of course. I'm a skeptic, and even though I'm open-minded, I look into all the possibilities. But evidence is evidence, whether I believe it or not, and I leave it up to you. I love when others get involved and weigh in with their opinions. What matters when you watch one of my videos is what you get out of it. And finally, just because you don't have the same experience someone else does at a location doesn't mean they're lying or their experience is invalid. I work at a paranormal museum, and sometimes people have experiences that I don't have, and vice versa. And some days nothing happens at all. You could hypothetically visit on one of those days where nothing happens. It doesn't mean nothing ever happens. If you are a believer in the paranormal, you would know that spirits, intelligent hauntings to be specific, would have to gather a lot of energy to make themselves known to you, and that's only if they want to. Anyway, just have fun with it, ghost or not. That's my motto too. Now, onto the video. So, one of the biggest mysteries that came out of my Annie's Road video was, what was that tall, lanky figure we saw? Who is the Beige Man, as we like to call it? In all honesty, the theory we initially stuck to was that it was actually just a druggie thinking he was alone in the cemetery. But then, people I don't even know started to weigh in with their own experiences at Laurel Grove Cemetery, and they were just too many similarities. First was Jose Puerto Rican's experience that he shared over a live broadcast of his. Hi again, I am obviously not Jose, but unfortunately the live stream where he interviewed me and shared his Laurel Grove story is no longer on his channel, but he was nice enough to send me his story, so I'm gonna read it to you. So in the words of Jose, here is his experience. I went to try to find Annie's grave with a couple of friends on a clear, warm Saturday afternoon. We had been looking around somewhat near the roadside of the cemetery. Out of nowhere, there was a guy on a Harley behind coming into the cemetery. We got startled as none of us heard him till he was right behind us. He just eerily stared at us as he passed till he got out of sight. A short time later, as I was walking toward another part of the cemetery, he was sitting behind a tree. I walked up to him asking if he had heard of Annie's grave. He said, "Yep." I asked if he knew where in the cemetery it was, and he just pointed towards another section further back. I had asked, "So you must be from around here?" Without looking at me, looking towards the area he had pointed out, in a deeper tone he said, "I'm from nowhere near around here." Something in what he said unnerved me. My friends approached to say we were going to go soon, and at that time I was stepping in between two trees leading to the back section of the cemetery. That's when the biker shot up with a furious look. That was enough for me and my friends to leave. As we made it into the car and began to leave, the biker just stared at us in an angry, menacing way. As we left the cemetery, we exited, turning onto the road alongside the cemetery. As we got to where the biker was and could be seen, he wasn't there anymore. Gone. No sound that indicated his Harley had been started or ridden, just gone. Note that this was early summer. We all had the windows of the car open as to enjoy the air, so we should have been able to hear his bike if he had left. Since that incident, myself and a few friends have seen a guy on a dark blue Harley at various times, even late at night, sitting on his bike close to the cemetery, watching or waiting. By the way, Jose's a really awesome dude. He's interested in the same stuff I am. So if you're interested, please check him out. I'll link all of his social media below. Different but similar enough, and these only get more similar to mine as we go on. Considering the cyclist in his story, this TikTok user's comment on my video became a lot more chilling and noteworthy. This person says, "I've also seen a guy cut off an 18-wheeler in a motorcycle. There was nothing left but jelly and a smashed visor. His body couldn't handle it. Motorcycle on the side of the freeway with a black streak behind it. No guy. Black streak going way past the motorcycle turns into a red streak." That's creepy. That correlates with Jose's story. Where the black streak stopped and the red streak began was where his helmet was. And he had slid and drug his helmet until it popped off. That's so sad. This is true, I live by there, it's creepy at night. And of course there are more comments on that TikTok. I'm not gonna make you sit through all of them. And then there's always people saying, I live there and nothing happened, so obviously nothing's going on there. Like I said earlier, just because nothing happened to you doesn't mean that other people's experiences are invalid. Now, here are the comments on the YouTube video itself that really freaked me out and prompted me to return to Laurel Grove. First comment says, "I've been on the road back in the 90s and I saw the glowing orbs which almost look like eyes in the cemetery and also the red paint on the street and guardrail. Crazy." And I have read about a lot of people back in the day who saw the paint on the road and on the guardrail. Next comment, "I live in this town. Grew up with the lore and my partner and I ride on Annie's road with his motorcycle. Never have I looked up the lore, nor where she's been spotted. But when you mentioned the spot under the Route 80 bridge, I was shocked, because no matter how nice the ride is, I'm always drawn to the spot. I'm so shocked I had no idea. And for the record, it's 50-50 with the smell. Some days it'll smell like a rotting body, other days, no smell. I'm shocked you noticed the smell." Oh, you'll know. Ew, what is that smell? Oh, that reeks. And finally, this last line freaks me out. She says, "We've seen the tall figure too. I am freaked out. And the cemetery, there's something wrong with it, and it's not Annie." It's that last line that really gets me. Finally, as I prepared my equipment to return to the cemetery, I came across an article in an older issue of Weird New Jersey magazine from the 90s. The article is titled "The Scratching Fear at Laurel Grove," and it was sent into the magazine by a subscriber. My friends and I went to Laurel Grove Cemetery near Annie's Road in Totowa, and we were walking around. We walked for about an hour when we realized we were lost. It's a pretty big cemetery. And as we tried to get back to the street, we started to hear this ghastly scraping noise as if someone or something was scratching at the ground. As we walked, it got louder and louder until it sounded as if it was right next to us. We stopped dead in our tracks. None of us wanted to move. I looked off to the right and I almost had a heart attack at what I saw. About 10 yards from us was the figure of something about the height of a tombstone scratching at the ground. It might have been digging, we don't know. We didn't stick around to see what it was. But imagine trying to run out of a cemetery you're lost in. It was intense. I had to tell someone. The line that stuck out to me was the size of a tombstone line, because I remember back when my friends and I had the experience, that was the same comparison that we kept making. This person's experience was too similar to ours, and the fact that this happened in the 90s or earlier tells me that this thing has been here for a while. I sent a picture of this article to my friends who were there with me, and of course they were freaking out. We had to go back to this cemetery. So recently I returned with Charlotte and Dan, 2 out of the 4 people who saw the figure last time. If you remember, Charlotte was the first to spot it, so she was determined to get answers.
Hello, I am here to talk about my experience at Laurel Grove Cemetery. Upon entering the cemetery, my friends were distracted trying to figure out if Annie's grave was at the area we were at. And instinct really is everything, because in that exact moment, I had this feeling come over me and something just told me to look into the distance, keep an eye out, make sure no one's watching us, following us, there's just no danger. I just froze because I saw this thing a pretty far distance away, but it looked like it was coming towards us. And it was beige and it was really tall and lanky and had no face. And it was just swaying and coming closer to where we were. For a moment I thought I was tripping, but my friends, they saw the same thing. So I just felt like the right thing to do was to take flight. I was just so scared. I didn't know what would happen if we stayed. In the moment that it happened, it was terrifying because, you know, my brain just went to the what if. I remember getting home that night not really knowing. I felt very overwhelmed because we were having fun, we were drawing, and we were conversating and comparing what we all saw. Turns out we all saw the same thing. But I felt really shook because it was just so perplexing, and I don't know if I'll ever see anything like it again. It stayed with me most of the night.
I brought plenty of lights this time. The reason I didn't bring any the first time was because I didn't know how tight security was and I didn't want to draw any attention to us. Just to clarify, I returned multiple times during the daytime, and when I returned at night is when I brought Dan and Charlotte. When we returned, we were on the lookout for flagpoles or anything that could possibly resemble a tall figure. We took the same route we did the first time, looked all around us, and we saw nothing that could have possibly been mistaken for what we saw that first time. Guys, this is where we were, alright? By this tree. Oh, you don't have...
And I had a feeling that, like,
What was that? My camera.
it was in this area. Yeah, and that frustrates me.
So I did get on camera. I thought it was more like down that way.
And this was validating to us. It means what we saw was not pre-existing or a constant thing in that cemetery, but something that seems to make occasional appearances. So I've been reading up on this book, Chasing Graveyard Ghosts, Investigations of Haunted and Hallowed Ground by Melba Goodwin. Sorry, I had to fix my backlight. Back to this book. I don't know how much of it I believe, and this is my first time consuming this author, but if what I read about in here is true, I could get behind the idea that the spirit we saw, if it was a spirit, was the protector of the cemetery. What the author Melba Goodwin refers to these as are cemetery guardians. Some believe these are the spirits that are usually spotted in cemeteries. Some believe that when orbs or anomalies are spotted in cemeteries, they are usually these guardian spirits. Just an excerpt. Cemetery guardians are protectors of the disembodied spirits who seem to linger in graveyards and cemeteries around the world. An Old English tale tells us that the ghost of the first person buried in a newly established cemetery or graveyard was responsible for guarding it against the devil, and was therefore imbued with special powers. In the early 1800s, in some countries, including rural America, whenever a new graveyard or cemetery was established, it was customary to bury some unfortunate victim alive in the first grave so that a ghostly guardian could be created. However, the high probability of people actually being buried alive due to medical ignorance could account for many of the graveyard ghosts and guardians still around today. As cemetery guardians, their purpose is to frighten off anyone, dead or alive, who might enter to disturb the peaceful repose of the dead. So again, I could get behind the idea that if what we saw really was some sort of a spirit, it could have been a cemetery guardian and we were disturbing the peace. Now, there's something else interesting to note about this cemetery. Now, I apologize if I pronounced this young man's name incorrectly, but in 1992, 17-year-old Robert A. Salamine Jr. of North Haledon was strangled to death in Clifton High School's parking lot by 5 friends of his, after they all recited the Hail Mary. This is a true and documented story, and it's known as the Hail Mary murders. You can look this up anywhere. There was even a book written about it. It was very, very unfortunate. And here's how that story correlates to our investigation. This is an excerpt from The Morning Call. As the trial for those young boys unfolded, it became apparent that the youths' lives had a darker, not-so-typical side. The 3 youths who testified described how the 5 Clifton youths came together in the fall of 1991 and became a mafia-like clique, whose activities included visits to a mausoleum supposedly haunted by a murdered girl named Annie. And this is referring to the Annie of Annie's Road. No one knows the location of his ashes to this day, but some people suggest they could be at Laurel Grove Cemetery. It's probably far-fetched, but could the Beige Man be him? Did Annie have any real involvement in influencing his murder? A side note, I still don't know why people think she was buried in that mausoleum with that other family. We also went to Annie's grave, or what I concluded was Annie's grave.
The one in the corner? Or this one?
What's this? Is that a coconut shard? Or is that not? Is that a skull shard? That right there. You see it?
We saw something strange right before getting to her grave. As you can see, there are 3 mystery bags right near her grave. I'm not sure what it is. I didn't want to touch it. What do you think that's all about? So, back to heading towards her grave. Experimented with some ghost hunting equipment.
This is a REM pod. It'll sense you if you're there. So anyone who's gonna comment saying this isn't her grave, look, we're doing our best. It might not be. She might not even be real.
But didn't get anything. And again, as I stated in my first video, I'm not even sure if this is her grave. I just went by process of elimination. So do I think Laurel Grove Cemetery is truly haunted, and do I think it's haunted by the ghost of Annie? I'm not so sure about the Annie story. I don't know if it's real or just another piece of urban legend. Of course, I hope it's just urban legend and that some young girl didn't have to suffer that horrible fate. Out of all the cemeteries I've visited, I would say if any of them were going to be haunted, I mean, It could be this one. Those stories, combined with our experience, was too much to not make an entire video about. So as usual, I would love to know your thoughts. If you had any experiences at this cemetery or any cemetery, please let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video. See you next time.